All right, good evening, everyone. Maybe just a, Bill, maybe just a bit more.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to our board meeting, and prior to the start of the meeting, we would ask that you would join us if you would like in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed immediately by the Lord's Prayer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you. And at this time, we call to order the regular school board meeting for January 17th, 2023. And this is the reorganizational meeting, the annual reorganizational meeting of the Board of Trustees. And normally, it's the privilege of the board president to call the meeting to order and begin the meeting. However, with the reorganizational meeting, the superintendent is charged at the beginning of the meeting to begin the meeting process until we seat the new president on the slate of officers for the year. So we are going to begin tonight with the administration of oath to new board members, then followed by the election of officers. So we are privileged to have with us two new board members tonight, Mr. Austin Brown and Mr. Jim Bryant. Congratulations, gentlemen. And I know Mr. Bryant has been sworn in at the public ceremony uptown, and Austin is going to be sworn in tonight, and we have a notary with us, just very handy here this evening. So, Mr. Herbert, if you would do the honors of administering the oath.
Austin, we'll have you place your hand here on the Bible. Reach your other hand. And repeat after me. I, Austin Brown, solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the laws of the United States and the State of Indiana. I will faithfully execute the duties of my office as a member of this governing body. So help me God. Awesome. Congratulations.
You want to take care of that now? Yes. Yeah, let's, Austin, if we could, let's go ahead and get signatures now, and we will get those stamped as well.
3 copies there.
And Mr. Kessinger, I know that following the meeting tomorrow, you'll see about getting those filed, and also check on the progress with Jim Bryant's as well, please. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You got time tomorrow for that, TK? You fit that in tomorrow?
Probably won't be, maybe not be quite as sunny and warm as today.
All right, thank you.
All right, again, Austin, Jim, congratulations to both of you, and welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to jump right in with both feet tonight. Board members, as we move on to item 1.3, board reorganization, election of officers, How we will progress is I'll first open the floor for nominations for the office of president. Once nomination or nominations are in, we'll then close the floor by consensus, and then we'll have a vote for president. And then following that time, we'll turn over the chair to the new board president. Okay. So, all set?
Yep.
You good? Okay. All right, so at this time, I do open the floor for nominations for president for the 2023 year.
Nominate Christina Allen Ward for president.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mrs. Ward for president. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, by consensus, are we comfortable with closing the floor for nominations? Okay, having one nomination, Mrs. Ward for president, I would ask for a motion to approve Mrs. Ward for president.
I'd make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Bryant,
Second.
second from Corey. Okay, any discussion? Nope. All right, so those in favor of Mrs. Ward for president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'm going to turn it right over to you to move on to vice president.
That's right, okay. All right, moving along, Vice President. We would like to open up the floor for nominations for Vice President.
I'll nominate Beth Cherry.
Do we have any other
Second.
nominations? Any discussion? Okay. Second, Corey Himsel, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Beth, congratulations on Vice President.
You too.
All right, next up is Secretary. We have nominations for Secretary. I'd like to nominate Corey Himsel.
I will second that.
Second that. Any questions, discussions, other nominations? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Congratulations, Corey, on more paperwork.
She's not lying.
Okay.
She's signing your name a lot more.
Okay.
All right, very good.
All right. Yep. Okay. Meeting dates and times. If you look at your board packet, there's a list of meeting dates. And anybody have any questions about those dates? Looks like, go ahead.
The October date fits in with approving the budget and everything come the fall. There's no, that can be a change later on.
Yep, should be good there.
Why is the July meeting a week later than it would be?
The July one, that is, what we have to think about is the week of the meeting. The week before the meeting, we're preparing for that. And what happens is we run into the July 4th week or the week before the July 4th week. So just trying to be sensitive to that and having a lot of employees on vacation at that time. That's why we suggested to move it back. If you'd like to do it differently, we certainly can. That is just a suggestion for your consideration.
I just noticed it was different than what.
Yeah.
And same for the January date, we're moving that back because of Christmas break, and we come back on the 8th, 9th, 10th, something like
Yeah,
that.
it'll be very similar to this year and how that falls.
Okay.
And then again, I know we've got noted there October 4th. That's a little bit early due to fall break. And of course, you already mentioned the January change. So those would be the three that are going to be a little bit different than typical.
And just to when does school start? The 10th, 11th, August? 10th?
I think the 10th. That sounds
So
right.
our administrators don't have to come on the August 14th one?
Right.
Correct? Okay. Just want to make sure we get that in there. Anyone? Who would like to make a motion to approve the 2023 meeting dates and times as presented?
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Himsel, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Establish compensation for board members.
Yes, provided in your packet are the statutory limits established by the legislature These are also the board's current limits, and I recommend approving the same limits this year. I don't really see a need for change. Those are the limits that are established by, again, the legislature based on the IPS board amounts. Those are very typical and standard across the state. Again, it's what we've been using for the last few years now. So again, it's up to the board, but I would recommend just staying where you are. I think it would be good just annually to go ahead and vote those in.
Motion to approve compensation for board members as presented.
I make that first motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Second,
Second.
Mrs. Cherry. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Appointment of legal counsel. Dr. Schaefer.
Did you want to do corporation treasurer?
Oh, sorry.
6? It's okay. There's a
Skip
lot-
down one.
there's a lot of
So you're
things
right.
there.
All right. Corporation treasurer.
I would recommend the board reappoint Mrs. Kim Baker, who is our district treasurer, as the corporation treasurer for that position.
Motion to approve Kim Baker as treasurer.
So moved.
Mr. Hensel, second.
Second.
Mrs. Cherry, any questions? Comments?
How many years has Kim served in that position?
A lot. No offense, Kim. And she's done a fine job.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Now, appointment of legal counsel, Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you. I'd recommend the board continue to use Mr. Terry Kessinger with Kendall Wood, Lowry, and Kessinger for general counsel, and to further utilize special counsel as we have, such as Church, Hiddle, and Antrim, Kroger, Gardis, and Regis. We've used Ice Miller for bond counsel, some of those really specialized areas, special education, labor law issues, and bonding. But again, Mr. Kessinger and his firm for all of our general counsel needs.
Motion to approve Mr. Kessinger as legal counsel.
I move to make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Second.
Second.
Mr. Hensel, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Appointment to Town Danville Parks Department.
You have one application before you this evening for Mr. Tim McRoberts. As I think all of you know, and probably most of our crowd, Mr. McRoberts most recently served on the Board of Trustees and just recently stepped away from that position. So I'm sure Mr. McRoberts is going to make a great park board representative and ask the board's consideration of Tim.
Motion to approve Tim McRoberts.
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
I'll make that second motion.
Mr. Bryant, questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. 1.9, appointment of legislative liaison. Bless you.
And when Mr. McRoberts exited the board, so did our legislative liaison. So, but annually, we do appoint this position, and the appointee is essentially charged with sort of keeping tabs on what's happening in the legislature on behalf of the board. Would also oftentimes serve as the Indiana School Board Association Delegate Assembly. When our board goes to conference, have someone attend those policy meetings. So it is totally up to you if one of you would like to take on that role, and I'll let the board decide that.
I have a question regarding that. I don't recall anything being in the policy that a board member has to be in that role. Is that correct?
I don't know that a board member has to be in that role.
In that case, I would propose that we ask Dr. Schaefer to be that liaison, staying on top of all the legislative issues and bringing that to us. We get the emails on a weekly basis, but given the other lives that we have, I think that fits in well with your day-to-day. And then when it comes to the delegation downstate, I think that some of us can volunteer to go down there as well and join in with that and participate on that. But I think that's just a good fit, given and knowing what you do with the role of policy here within the corporation and what goes on with the state. But I feel comfortable with that.
Thank you. I'm happy to do that, but again, if any board member would like to, please.
Any other nominations or recommendations?
Dr. Schaefer's got my vote.
But a board member has to attend the delegate assembly. In other words, I can't attend that. It would have to be a board member that would attend delegate assembly.
Is that what you attended last? No important meeting.
And does it have to be only one?
You have one vote. I think
Yeah.
more than one could attend, yes.
Okay.
That's typically held before the School Board Association conference. Beth
It's a very
attended that.
early meeting
Yeah.
at the convention center.
Yeah,
Very
day
early.
to about 7:30, yes.
So you could take care of the policy updates or the updates on that stuff, and then when we go to the convention, it could be a matter of one of us going with, and then they're gonna ask for a vote, and the board member is the one that has to give the vote, correct?
That's correct.
Any other comments or questions, suggestions?
Beth, did
I
you
was
want-
gonna volunteer to do that, but if you are more comfortable with Dr. Schaefer doing it, that's fine too.
It doesn't matter to me. Well, you two can have
Dr.
it
Schaefer,
down.
you got a lot on your plate already. Is that something that you want to take on, or would you prefer leaving that in our hands?
That is totally up to the board. And I think it's good that the board is directly engaged in that in terms of your voice and knowledge, in terms of keeping each other informed what's happening in the legislature. But if none of the board members want to do it, I would, be happy to do that and try to keep the board informed. That's something we're pretty regularly engaged in terms of just policy tracking, bill tracking, that type of thing here through the session, which has now begun. But again, please, if a board member would like to do that, have at it.
What do you want to do?
I volunteer, but this is a 5-member
Okay.
board, so
Well, I'd say, if you want to volunteer, by all means, you have Beth be our representative. She's gone down to the meeting. Delegate, we could have backup with Dr. Schaefer. If for some reason she's out, then he could fill that spot on a school board meeting.
Absolutely.
Is that
Fine.
okay?
That's, yeah, works for me.
Okay.
Thank you,
So we will appoint Mrs. Beth Cherry for our legislative liaison. Who would like to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that we, Beth is in that position.
Okay. Second,
I'll second that.
Mr. Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Congratulations, Beth. All right, thank you for stepping up, Beth. Students of the month, Dr. Schaefer.
Yes, we are so privileged this evening to have a great bunch of Students of the Month here to recognize. And I want to start off by thanking our teachers and building principals and parents for having great kids here and making those selections and recommendations. So we're going to begin with North Elementary. Mrs. Perkins will introduce our North Elementary Student of the Month. And parents, anytime you would like, if your child is being recognized and you want to come up and get a picture up here to get a better angle, please feel free to do that.
Good evening. I'm happy to introduce Ashley Modazzolo, North Elementary Student of the Month for December. Ashley is the daughter of Miriam Zolo and Hector Moto and is a second grade student in Mrs. Steerwalt's classroom. My first question of our Students of the Month is always, what is your favorite thing about North Elementary? And sometimes it takes a little while for them to think. But Ashley answered that question without missing a beat by saying with a huge smile on her face, I get to learn new things. Ashley likes math the best. She told me that last year she struggled learning her doubles facts, but this year she is faster at them, and now she has moved on to improving her subtraction skills. Ashley also likes art because she likes to color and be creative. If she could do one thing to make life better at North Elementary, she would give more time and resources to our teachers so that they could do everything they want to for their students. When she isn't at school, Ashley likes to play on her computer. She loves to play on Prodigy, and she likes to go to Mrs. S's computer lab page. Ashley has 2 older sisters, and while they sometimes argue about cleaning their room, she says they are pretty good to her. Ashley also has a younger brother that she helps her mom with and who likes to play on the computer with her. Ashley loves that her mom is a great cook and that her dad is a hard worker. If she could do anything or go anywhere for a day, she would like to go visit with her grandmother in Mexico. When Ashley grows up, she would like to be a singer. She doesn't know yet what kind of music she would like to make, but when I asked her who she would like to go see if we went to a concert, she picked Blackpink. I'll be honest, I had to look that one up, but I thought it might be kind of fun. When our committee was considering our Student of the Month nominations, Mrs. Stark said, Ashley is so sweet in art. She helps everyone and is very positive and polite. Mrs. Kidd, Mrs. Jackson, and Mrs. Kavantaris all agreed that she would be a great choice. Mrs. Steerwalt nominated Ashley and had the following to say about her. Ashley is a kind, caring student. She is respectful to both teachers and students. Ashley is often seen helping other students without being asked to do so. She always seems to have a smile on her face and never lets anything get her down. She works hard with all tasks given, often doing extra work at home to practice and get better. Ashley's easygoing personality and good sense of humor make her a delight to have in class. Congratulations, Ashley, on being our North Elementary Student of the Month. We are all very proud of you.
Congratulations, Ashley and family. All right, next we're going to introduce our South Student of the Month, and Mrs. Doe is going to do that.
All right. This is Owen Lillard. I'm so proud to introduce him to you. He is a fourth grader in Mrs. Raleigh's class, and he is pretty awesome. According to Owen, he loves coming to school because he can get to know people and make friends. He enjoys going to his specials classes, especially gym, and he also likes playing soccer at recess. In his free time, Owen likes to hang out at home, and he has 2 brothers and 2 sisters. He loves helping take care of his baby brother. When asked how he has become such a good young man, Owen shared that his grandpa Bob has been a good influence on him. He said that his grandpa encourages him and offers to help him with his homework. But when Owen grows up, he wants to get married and move to Alaska. Owen was nominated by Mrs. Bowman, who writes, I see Owen daily as he's in my 4th grade RTI reading group. It never fails that he walks in with a positive attitude and is ready to take on whatever we have planned for the day. He is the first to grab everyone's things for them and make sure we all have smiles on our faces. Owen tries his best every day, which is all I ask for the students in my groups. He is there for his peers, works hard when asked, and is a bright light that shines up and down the halls of South Elementary. I'm proud of his progress this year in reading, and I'm excited to see him continue to excel. Way to go, Owen. From my own interactions with Owen, I can tell you that he's an absolute delight. He always has a smile on his face and engages you in a conversation each time he sees you. If I had to guess, Owen might be one who has a comment on his report card such as talks a lot, which will one day translate as someone who has the gift of gab and someone with great interpersonal relationship skills. We're certainly proud to have Owen represent us as South Elementary's Student of the Month. Congratulations, Owen.
Congratulations, Owen, and family. And now we're going to learn about our middle school Student of the Month, and Mrs. Webster is going to introduce him.
All right. This month we have the distinct pleasure of honoring 5th grader and Team 5-1 student Ja'Cory Booker with our Student of the Month award. Ja'Cory is the son of Veranda Booker, and he is one of 7 children in his family with 4 brothers and 2 sisters. Ja'Cory loves school and he enjoys hanging out with his friends. He said his friends help him and he helps them when they need it. His favorite school subject is math because it comes fairly easily for him compared to reading. When I asked him if he could change anything about school, he said that there really is nothing he could change about it. Ja'Cory's teachers had this to say about him. Mrs. Maxwell, math teacher, says, when I think of a hard worker, I think of Ja'Cory. He's not afraid to admit if he needs help or to try another strategy in math. Ja'Cory is also honest, kind, and very funny. He always makes each day interesting. While he won't admit it, the other students in our class look up to him. He is a great role model as a student who balances working hard and still having fun in school. Keep it up, Ja'Cory. Mrs. Riles, reading teacher, adds, Ja'Cory is a hard worker who's always ready to help others and work with people positively and productively. He loves to learn, and he comes to school with an infectious, positive attitude. He is a powerful student because of how every student looks up to him, and he uses that power to demonstrate joy and leadership. He is very funny, but knows when to be serious and listen. He's a great student to have in class. And lastly, Mrs. Allen shared, Ja'Cory is such a fun student. He is funny and friendly, he's a very hard worker, and he will challenge himself in tough situations. He shows compassion to those around him and makes friends easily. He is always willing to pitch in and help his peers. Ja'Cory has grown into a very positive role model for others. When Ja'Cory is not in school, he plays video games with friends. His current favorite video games are Fortnite and Mortal Kombat. He also plays football for Danville Junior League, and he fills the positions of running back and safety. His favorite TV show is Rick and Morty, and his favorite food is okra, which surprised me. When I asked Ja'Cory what he wants to do with his future, he said he wants to play football in the NFL. His backup plan, if the NFL doesn't work out, is to become a doctor or a teacher. Whatever he does, he wants to have a career where he helps people. Ja'Cory, we're proud of you and the work you've put into being a wonderful student. Keep up the great work, and congratulations.
Congratulations, Ja'Cory and family. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Hammond, who will introduce our high school student of the month.
As you can see, my high school student of the month hasn't shown up. So I can go ahead and read about Vanessa or whatever.
That would be great.
Okay.
I'd like to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome. This month we are excited to have, unfortunately she's not here, Vanessa Brewer as our student of the month. Vanessa is a hardworking student who is doing amazing things in the world of fine arts. According to Mr. Sides and Mrs. Delancian, Vanessa is caring and excels at choir and art. Vanessa gives her full effort in class and goes above and beyond. She is able to take constructive criticism and seeks out new techniques. Watching Vanessa improve and show passion creates a positive learning environment and leads others to want to excel as well. For as long as she can remember, Vanessa has loved making works of art. She loves drawing and painting. Her medium of choice is painting. She does do portraits. However, she prefers to paint animals or landscapes. When she dives into a painting, it is not unusual for Vanessa to spend more than 10 hours completing one painting. Throughout her life, Vanessa has had some incredible experiences with travel and role models. At this point, she has crossed the international date line, having traveled to the Philippines. She has visited our neighbors to the north and south, along with 42 states. This summer, she plans on continuing adventuring to the European continent. It is possible that this summer trip will be with her parents. Vanessa was very quick to point out that she admires her parents a great deal. She said they are both successful in running their own businesses and have worked really hard to get where they are today. In the future, Vanessa can see herself becoming an art educator. She plans on attending Florida College and studying education. She can see herself working with elementary age students. Vanessa, when you are working with elementary students, you may get frustrated and you may even at times get discouraged. Just take a moment and remember this thought from Paul Cezanne. You are living in a rainbow of chaos. And I'll make sure she gets the plaque.
Thank you, Dr. Hammond. Congratulations to Vanessa.
Okay, community input. Did we have any? Okay. Would anybody like to give community input? Okay. At this time, I think we should take maybe a 2-minute break, and if those who would like to head on out, you guys may leave, and those of you who want to stay and hear Dr. Hammond's amazing presentation on the high school, you are welcome to stay. We'll take a 2-minute break. presentation, exciting presentation.
It's going to be thrilling because I'm not giving it.
Hallelujah. No, just kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Stefan Serta and Mr. Jamie Comer. If you gentlemen would come forward. These are the two gentlemen running our strength and athletic performance at our high school. Stefan, we hired this past summer and has made a tremendous impact in what we're doing so far. And I thought it would be great to give you guys an update with our strength and athletic performance. Gentlemen?
Thank you.
First off, thank you to the board, Dr. Schaefer, Dr. Hammond, for giving us this opportunity to come and talk about our program that we're extremely passionate about and really proud of the things that we've done. So first off, just a little introduction for us. My name is Jamie Comer. This is my 10th year teaching, my third at Danville. Prior to Danville, I taught at Western Boone for 7 years. Coach Serta and I are a little bit different than your typical teachers in terms of our education. We're both exercise science majors. He's working on his transition to teaching. I've completed mine through Indiana Wesleyan, and then I have my master's through there as well. Kind of my field experience. Prior to coming to Danville here, I was at Western Boone for 7 years. Prior to that, Texas Christian University for a semester, and then University of Indianapolis before that. So a little bit of a different experience in terms of most teachers, but something that fits the field, fits our program pretty well.
Yep. And I'm Stefan Serta. This is my first year teaching. I've been here since June, so 7 months or so, and I'm really enjoying it. The kids have been awesome. Prior to this, I did 9 years of private sports performance, so I'm new to teaching, but as far as coaching, I always saw it as teaching, and I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. Purdue graduate, doing my Indiana Wesleyan transition to teaching now, and that's some of my field experience there in the private sector.
Okay, a little bit about, first off, about our in-school strength and conditioning program and the things that we offer our student athletes and all of our students. If you take a look up there on the screen, on the left, we offer PE 1 and 2 weightlifting. The prerequisites for that are, we'd like for it to be 9th grade students. It's not all 9th grade, but our incoming freshmen take that. And then participation in Danville High School athletic team. This is the first year that we're offering this class as a full year program. Last year it was 1 semester, and then my first year here we did not have this program. My first year here we just had PE 1 and 2. You go to a normal PE class and play kickball, and that's it. Well, this class is much more focused on our student athletes and utilizing the time that we have with them over these 8 semesters that they are in high school. There's only 2 schools in our conference that offer this. Western Boone is the other. We started that program 10 years ago, and now us as a full-year program. So we offer 2 different semesters of that. On the right, you'll see for our 10th through 12th grade students, advanced weight training. Again, it's 1 semester at a time, but kids take it for the full school year. Our prereqs, again, are being a part of our athletic team, and then completion of PE 1 and 2 weightlifting. The goal is to get all of our student athletes within these class periods throughout the day. Some reasonings for that. The first is the time constraints of we're not requiring kids to come before school or after school. Instead, we're able to get their training done throughout the school day and help make sure that they can focus on the skill development or whatever their sport may be, and then their studies. And then the second thing is the time that we have with them throughout the school day and throughout the school year. We can go much more in depth in terms of the safety and making sure that we're doing things the right way with our student athletes. If you take a look at some of these pictures, on the left, you can see that's our weight room right now, and that's about what it looks like every day with the number of students that we have in there. And again, that group right there getting a break at the end. But those are the 2 opportunities that we offer our student athletes throughout the school day each day. So a little bit of kind of what the growth of our classes looked like over these past few years. So my first year in 2020, 2021, we offered 4 periods. We had no freshman weight training classes. We had 4 advanced weight training classes. We had 110 kids in that class. Okay, our second year, we got to 5 periods. We had 1 semester class of our freshman weights, which was a really beneficial thing, and we got to 185 students. This year, with Coach Serta's help, has really pushed us over the edge, in my opinion. We now have 5 periods. We offer a full year of a freshman weights class, and we have over 250 kids taking this class at this time. If you come to our class first period, you'll see 40 plus. You come second period, it's at 56. You come fourth period, it's at 57. You come fifth period, fifth period's at 40 plus, and then 7th period's at 45 plus, which seems like a ton of kids, and I'm gonna tell you it is a ton of kids, especially with the space that we have. But the benefit of having us both work together with our experiences we're able to manage our kids and make sure that they're getting what they need throughout the school day. But again, the growth that we've had isn't just a testament to me or anything like that, or Coach Serta, but really our kids and the way that they bought into what we've asked them to do. We've asked them to change the culture and the understanding of what we do in the weight room, to understand the benefits of it, of why we spend so much time in it, the pride that we take in it, not just from, obviously, a football standpoint for me, but every other sport that we have at Danville Community High School. Our kids understand that we're different than other people, that we take pride in developing them, we take pride in making sure that they're the best that they can be. I would expect next year we'd like to be over 300 kids in this program. We'd like to be at 6 periods. We're already pushing that with the help of our head coaches, of our counselors, and then our kids and the word of mouth. So, kind of talking about our year-round opportunities. Obviously, during our school day, we worked with 9th through 12th grade kids during the class period. Coach Serta comes in 3 days a week before school. We have after-school opportunities as well. If you would have went in to the weight room after school today, you would have seen 70 kids. We had 250 during the day. We had 70 after school. Now, a lot of those were overlaps, but that room is utilized year-round to an extremely high capacity. Starting February 1st, and we did this all first semester as well, we'll train 6th, 7th, and 8th graders two times per week after school. Wednesdays and Fridays after school, we'll work with our middle school guys and girls. In the summertime, we work 3 days a week with our 9th through 12th graders, and our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders work 2 times a week. So we're 12 months a year. Year-round, we work with these kids. We talked about it, Coach Serta and I did the other day, that we're 49 out of 52 weeks a year. Him and I are working with these kids to help develop them into the best that they can be. We'll take spring break off, take a week of Christmas break, and then the IHSA moratorium. But 49 out of 52 weeks, these kids are in that weight room. These kids are invested in what we're doing and trying to build something special. Here's a little bit of a video of kind of what our class looks like.
All right, so I'll go into our program philosophy and how we kind of design and structure our class. So we strive to provide safe, effective athletic development training using proven methods and data-driven, innovative programs for all Danville student athletes. And that's all Danville student athletes, right? That's why we like to start in the middle school. Boys and girls, it's all Danville student athletes. So there's 4 parts to that: safe, effective, data-driven, and innovative, that I find extremely important. First and foremost is safe. These are athletes coming in the weight room. They don't play their sport in the weight room. They're not a competitive weightlifter or Olympic lifter. If they want to be, I have a program for that as well. But these are athletes. They play basketball, they play football, they play soccer, tennis, whatever it is. They don't need to come into our weight room and get hurt. So that's our first and foremost, our goal there. That comes down to our structure, our organization, our procedures. Next, it needs to be effective. So everything that we do, there shouldn't be any fluff in there. We're not just doing it to do it. What we do, we only have 43 minutes when you take out the dress time of our class. It's not a lot of time to work out, but I find that to be very efficient for our athletes as well, because they're playing sports after school. We have a lot of multi-sport athletes. They don't need to be in there for 2 hours. 40 minutes is perfect, and it needs to be effective. So that comes down to our exercise selection, what we choose to put them through, how they do it, their technique, their execution of it, and then how we decide to program it and how we plug things in and out. Next, we got to be data-driven. So there's no specific system with this. You know what I mean? It is what it tells us. So if they're not progressing, if they're not getting any better, we have to change it, right? So we need to be data-driven. We record every 4 weeks. We do testing every 4 weeks, sub-testing. And at the end, we do a big performance test and strength test. We do that twice a year. We just finished up. We had great numbers with that. Lastly, we have to be innovative. So we have to constantly just strive to create new ways for them to progress. Did you give them a handout here? So I'm not going to go too deep into this as far as the handout goes, but this will give you a brief overview of our system, our philosophy. There's foundational exercises. We progress from body weight to small loads to then speed and heavy loads. So if that stuff looks completely, like a different language to you, that's fine. but we just wanted to offer you guys and give you guys a handout of kind of a look into what we're doing and how we progress it with our kids and how we tie that in starting in the middle school. It's very important that we get to them then in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade so that we can teach them the patterns, the positions, and teach them technique before they get there. If we do that, freshmen aren't freshmen anymore. You know what I mean? Freshmen are hard to plug in, and the way that we have it set up is really nice, how freshmen are separated. But typically, if you see this in a high school setting, typically freshmen just jump into a weights class with everybody, right? So imagine me, little freshman, and here's big Jamie squatting 400 pounds. What do I want to go do, right? I want to try to impress him. And it just works like that. Kids have that pressure. So with us doing middle school on separate days and freshmen in separate classes, that's huge because we can start them and progress them exactly where they need to be. It's kind of a misconception with weight training and exercise. It just needs to be a kill session. You know what I mean? It just needs to be conditioning. It doesn't have to be that way. It should be just like teaching. It should be progressed through a system. Especially, I find that really important. So here's our middle school athletic development goals. We want to have year-round training opportunities. So what we plan to do is have 12 weeks in the spring and the fall. That's going to start February 1st in the spring, and then 7 weeks in the summer. So they'll have an opportunity spring, fall, and summer, the middle school athletes, to get in the weight room 2 times a week. And that will start them off with a great training base. Our goals of that is to introduce the speed and strength training. Again, it's not to finish them at the end goal, but to introduce them to how to train properly. Technique, right? How fast do I go? Where do I need to be? They're finding the weight room. They've been in there before, but where do I need to be? How am I going to make that safe? He kind of went over our numbers. We got a lot of kids for the amount of space that we have in the weight room, so it's super important for them to know where they need to be and when they need to be there so that they're staying safe and effective. So we're going to build a foundation of technique and competency. We're going to properly progress them through their speed and strength methods, and ultimately we want to create a fun, positive training environment. We want them to have fun. We want them to feel confident. If a boy walks into a weight room just by looking at the weights, he probably got more confident. You know what I mean? So we want them to feel that environment. And lastly, we want to, we take a lot of time preparing them mentally, but we want to also physically prepare them for high school and college. If they want to do that for themselves. So they have an opportunity by the time they're in 12th grade, and this is something we see just in our field. Not a lot of high school athletes are prepared to even go to college because they've never had something like this. Our athletes coming out of Danville have 6 to 7 years of a training age, as we call it in our world, a training age, by the time they get there. So if they are going on to be a collegiate athlete, they will be prepared for the advanced methods that they're probably going to be given. And I think that's pretty awesome too. So obviously that's our goal starting from middle school.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Coach Sturda said and talk about the future and growth of our program, some goals that we have, and Coach talked about it a little bit right there, but if you just look at our high school kids, we only have 8 semesters with them. And it seems like a long time to have 4 years, but it's only 8 semesters, and every one of those is important. From my standpoint as a football coach, I only have 7 semesters. So if we're not utilizing the time in middle school into high school, then we're doing these kids a disservice. And what Coach Sturda hit on, the day-to-day opportunities that we have with these kids, we're not just teaching them how to be weightlifters, but we're teaching them how to take care of themselves for life. We're teaching them a fitness goal, so when they get to college, whether they're an athlete or not, they go to the fitness center, they know what they're doing. They're competent in taking care of their bodies. They're understanding the things that they should be doing to feed themselves correctly, and they're making sure that they're recovering in the correct manners as well. We'd like to continue to look with our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and find opportunities to work with them, not only before and after school, but potentially during the school day. That's becoming a norm in most high schools and most corporations. I know there's one in this county that has that opportunity, and there's some that touch our county that have middle school training opportunities during the day with weight rooms at their middle school, as crazy as that sounds. The introduction of training camps for our K through 5th grade students, again, continue to build that foundation of training. Now, this might not be weight room work, but it can be body weight work. It can be teaching them how to get lined up, how to do things correctly, and kind of take it from their PE class then to our field a little bit more. Facility expansion, obviously with the growth of our classes, we'd like to continue to see that opportunity and the use of technology within the weight room as well. I think that's one thing that we can continue to take steps in. There's different data and different programs and things that we can use to track bar speed, to track the way the kids move, to make sure that we're doing it in the correct manner and that they're being successful. And then continued investment in the success of our student athletes, new equipment, technology, and opportunities such as that. This field continues to change on a year-to-year basis, and we have to make sure as teachers and coaches that we stay up to date on the newest methods to make sure our kids are successful. Again, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for supporting us, for supporting our program, supporting what we're trying to build. With the addition of Coach Serta, I really feel like we've taken our programs to the next level. I think we've started to see the growth of our student athletes. We've started to see the buy-in, obviously, with the numbers, but we're now the success that they're having on whatever their field or court might be. I think over the years to come, we have an opportunity to do something really special. So again, thank you. Is there any questions that we have? Anything along those lines?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are we fortunate enough, Mr. Comer, to have representation from all athletic teams somewhere through the school day?
Yes, we are. We have boys, girls, you name it. Every sport within our corporation we have within this weight room. And that's something that we didn't hit on a ton there, but our female student athletes are some of the hardest workers that we have. Our girls are in there. Our girls basketball team has really bought in, and I think you've seen the success they've had this winter with those girls and how well they've worked. I think it's something that we sell it as, it doesn't matter if you're male, female, anything along those lines. As long as you're here to work hard, you'll find success. You'll find a way to improve. And that goes back to their head coaches. That goes back to Mrs. Harvey and the support that she gives us of really pushing those kids, of understanding the benefits of the weight room to help with injury prevention, and then confidence too. The confidence to go out there and understand that they work harder than the people they're competing against. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
What opportunities do the students have that don't participate in sports?
Yep, so we have a lifetime fitness class as well. So any kid that's not a student athlete has that opportunity to take that class. They get to utilize the weight room as well. And then we have normal PE classes, PE 1 and 2. And things that we found, honestly, with the addition of our athletic weights classes and PE classes, is that those kids that are in PE 1 and 2 that are not athletes are honestly thriving, because you've eliminated the athletes from the group. So now those kids aren't as nervous. They're able to really partake in the class and find much more success in those physical fitness classes, and really finding a way to improve.
Do you guys not coach? Do you teach the class together with that many students?
Yeah.
It takes two of you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Some in the weight room, some in the gym. Is that how that works?
Yeah, we try to utilize the space the best we can, obviously with those numbers. But yeah, we co-teach the class, and we find ways to utilize the gym, to utilize the upstairs balcony, try to get kids in smaller groups if we can. But again, utilize that weight room quite a bit as well.
I'm just sitting here thinking dodgeball was some of the most fun I had in high school.
Mr. Burrows.
To take that out of the.
I know. I think that's
We worked out after
frowned
school.
upon
Yeah.
sometimes now. But no, we do. The good thing is too, with the facilities that we have and what Coach Serta's brought, especially during the fall when the weather was really good. On Wednesdays we go out to the field, and Dr. Hammond was out there one day. We push sleds. We play tag games. We do different things like that really keep it fresh for the kids, and they're working their butts off, and they don't realize it until we go inside. And I got to give a lot of credit to Coach Serta. I've been in teaching and strength conditioning for 10 years. I had the opportunity to play in some college weight rooms and be around some really, really good people. Well, he's one of the best that I've been around, and I think we're very lucky to have him here at Danville.
Coach Comer, if you take as a freshman the weightlifting class for freshmen, do they have to take swimming, or are they like exempt from that? Like, how does that work?
So that's the best part about this class, and working with Dr. Hammond, is that's included within the class.
Okay.
So we're able to structure that so those kids still get that opportunity to swim each semester. So it's just we kind of vary it based off the needs of the class, and really try to pair kids together that would. We did it first semester. We did boys one day, girls another day, to try to make sure that they're still utilizing the pool. We're still teaching life-saving methods in the pool if they are still swimming. Yes.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you, because my kids have been a part of the program, and even really to Matt Dugan as well, because Sydney was a part of his program. And when we were on vacation over Christmas break, it was the first time as a family we could all go to the gym, and I didn't have to tell them what to do. Carter had his own workout on his phone, Sydney had hers, and so it was like, I don't have to do it, because I have a training background. So it's nice for me not to have to coach them, that they knew exactly what to do, which is a huge goal. When you go to college as an athlete, you're always told what to do, and to instill those life skills that they can carry with them, whether they're an athlete or not, in college and life beyond. That's important. So thank you. Do you have anything?
Well, I might as well. Everybody else did. I don't want to be left out. So with the addition of the swimming and weightlifting 1 and 2, does that mean that it meets the graduation requirement and that would be the only physical education class that they would have to take?
Yeah, so the kids that take PE 1 and 2 weightlifting as student athletes, they would only have to take that class, but we
Okay.
highly encourage that they continue to take it as sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Back on track.
Yeah.
Okay. Consider approval of the December 12th, 2022 regular school board meeting minutes. Any questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Himsel, questions or comments about minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval for the December 14th executive board meeting minutes. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Himsel, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Treasurer's report, Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Our treasurer's report here for the month of December. We had a fund balance in our property and state tax supported funds of $9,585,852. For the education fund, we had expenditures for the month of $1,432,064. In our debt service fund, we had expenditures of $4,826,625. In the operations fund, we had expenditures of $653,824. We also transferred from the education fund to the operations fund $217,783.81. We also did, and it's not in here, but transferred for our new board members per the resolution that we signed in December, $250,000 from our operations fund into our rainy day fund as well. I just want to bring that to your attention, just due to the cash that we had available in our operations fund. So continuing to just kind of build up that reserve for the just in case scenarios that we hope we don't ever see. So that also brings our transfer for the corporate totals to 12.84% of the total education fund revenue, or 13.5% of our total state tuition support. So that's the financial report for December, and I would ask for the board's approval.
Motion to approve treasurer's report as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Himsel, second.
I will second it.
Mr. Bryant, questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Approval of quarterly financial report.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. This being the final quarter here for the year, we had total corporation spent or encumbered 102.95% of the education fund. And at the end of the fourth quarter, we had either spent or encumbered 103.18% of the operations fund. Have you note that both of those percentages are over 100%, but when we schedule or when we budget do the budget, I guess, back in that time, we do have wiggle room there that we have the capabilities of doing that. And so that way, if we do go a little bit over, again, we don't totally budget our full dollars, so we are not running out of money when this does happen. And these two percentages being over the 100% are actually tied back to the support that we provided to our staff in some of the raises that we're able to give them, mainly that being from the operations fund going to our classified staff. When we go through the budgeting process, we did not quite know exactly what that increase was going to be. So therefore, that's what caused a little bit of that overage there in the operations fund, was that raise to our staff. And then same thing for the education fund. As we went through the budgeting process, we foresaw what we were going to be giving, but what we kind of didn't see was the 10 positions that we added to our education staff or teachers. And so that comes out of the education fund. So really, it's the support of our staff is what's really kind of pushed both of those numbers over the 100%. Obviously, that's what we're going to shoot for, but in the budgeting process, we allow for a little bit of wiggle room right there. So this is really nothing to be alarmed about or nothing to be concerned about, but just wanted to put that before you and bring that to your attention.
Corey, does this also include like money we've spent that we'll get back like for the capital projects? we
Yes,
plan to
there
do?
is. Yes, there's a good chunk of that. Specifically, a lot of the fees that we've paid to Barton Covilma, our architect. And I know Mr. Hemsel's asked that question in the past, that yes, those are dollars that once we go out to start issuing the bonds here this year in '23, that we'll get those dollars recovered, and those will go back into the operations fund. So
Do we have to take those dollars back into the operations fund?
you do, because where it's coming from, we have to replace it back into where it came from. It's not to say that if we, at the end of this year, have a surplus in the operations fund like we have the last 2 years, that we couldn't take some of that money and then again transfer it to the rainy day fund, or we can even per statute actually transfer it back to the education fund if we wanted to. So yeah, it has to go back where it came from, but then we can still move it on from there.
Corey, I have a question.
Mhm.
On the slide that has the 4 funds, and the first column underneath it is the object. And it has December 22, December 21, year-to-date 22, year-to-date 21, 2022 budget.
Oh, let me get back. Are you on 5.1 or are you on 5.2? I think it sounds like you're on 5.1.
Okay. Could be.
Let me get pulled up so I'm looking at the
No,
same thing you are.
Oh, yeah, never mind.
Oh, it's okay.
I have a question about, if it's 5.1, I have a question then regarding that slide. Just in general interpretation of the,
Let me make sure. Is that one?
yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing you are.
My question is simply on in that information there, you have year-to-date 2022, and then you have the column 2022 budget.
Yes.
When you look at those 2 columns, if the budget is lower than what you have year-to-date 2022, is there concern that is that an indication that we're over budget in a few of those objects, or?
No, it's something to be aware of. But again, like I said, the way that we budget the numbers, we budget so that there is a little bit of wiggle room there.
Okay.
So when I go through and go through the process here in October, that takes the board's approval, what I do is I don't budget the full dollars that we receive in. Some people do take the strategy of let's budget 100% of the money we have.
Okay.
I always leave as much back as I can for this circumstance right here, that in case we do go a little bit over budget, that we still have the funds that we can cover it. So
Okay.
obviously my goal is to be break even, to be zero. But no, if we see something like this that happens, then we're always going to be okay.
I just wanted to clarify in reference to other people that may be looking at this from afar.
Sure. Yep. Not a
Thank
problem.
you.
Okay, motion to approve quarterly financial report.
So moved.
Mr. Bryant, second.
Second.
Mr. Hemsel, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Approval of claims, Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. For the month of December, we have pre-written claims of $5,050,826.20. We have the traditional claims of $593,261.46, for total claims for the month of December of $5,644,087.66. Obviously, bringing to your attention, the major cause for the claims there is our debt service payment that we do make in June and December. So that took up a little bit over 4.6 million of that total 5.6 million. So I would just ask for the board's approval on the claims for December.
Motion to approve claims as presented.
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Hemsel, questions?
I do, because I'm never going to remember this. Those MSD Wayne checks for Sanders and Area 31 quarterly payments?
Yes.
Right. I'm getting there.
You're getting it.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Approval of payroll claims.
Thank
Mr.
you, Mrs.
Herbert.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine.
All right, so our payroll claims for the month of December, we had a December 18th payroll of $744,109.30. And we had our January 1st claim of $614,730.76, bringing both of our payroll claims for this month to $1,358,840.06. So I would ask for the board's approval in our payroll claims for the month of December.
Motion to approve payroll claims as presented.
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Bryant, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Old business. We don't have any old business?
No old business.
Okay. 7.1, consider approval of personnel recommendations. Dr. Schaefer.
The personnel report is before you, along with the attachments that support that. I know a couple board members had a question on our operations coordinator position, and I'd be happy to talk about that, answer questions, or I don't know how you'd like to handle that, but I'll leave that to the board.
Yeah, do you guys want to go ahead and you guys can talk about what the director of operations role is, why we're having it, a little bit how you've talked to us, because other people might want to know that as well.
Right. We're at a point where we have a few people's plates getting kind of full in the district, 3 or 4 in particular. And what we're trying to do is help alleviate some of that with this position, but also to get to a more single source of communication and coordination across our facilities in terms of security and safety. So this position will be working working with our maintenance and facilities area and with our police department and security areas, overseeing things like door security, which we can control electronically in many locations. And as we progress through our building project, those locations are going to become more and more common. Also with camera security throughout our campus. That's another primary area of oversight that's becoming new very quickly in terms of how we monitor cameras and how we coordinate those. I know Mr. Herbert has been really directly involved in working through this with our directors, trying to pull this together. So I'm going to let him fill in a few more details, but that's sort of the basics of it, is trying to get some of those pieces off the plates. They're becoming a very big piece. If I use Mrs. Reeves in technology, and she's in charge of all of our state reporting, a lot of those areas are very busy, and then we've kind of, very slowly added door security on. Well, it becomes a bigger and bigger piece of the pie, taking more and more of her time, and we need to move that off of her plate, just as an example. We have a few other examples too, and one that I forgot was all of our security badging, all of our security badges, not just the making of those, but keeping track of them, keeping them recorded. Obviously, the making of that, that's on our front receptionist, but our front receptionist, the central office, also does all of our accounts payable. So we're kind of giving her 3 jobs, and we need to get some of that off of her plate. So with that, Corey, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you fill in a few more details on that.
Yeah, no, Dr. Schaefer, he pointed out a lot of the things that we're kind of shifting around, but also to point out there are a couple things that right now, from a security and safety standpoint, we probably really should be focused on that we're not doing as well as we could. There's a lot of this that I'm not saying that we're not doing at all, but we can definitely do a better job. A lot of that comes around key control, knowing who has the keys, who has access to different buildings, making sure that we have a database that is up to date, and so that we're fully aware of that. As you know, that as we start to move into our construction projects, there's going to be a lot more folks on campus who are typically not here, being our contractors, our builders, just all kinds of different folks that are going to be on our campus, in our buildings, with our students here. And so one of the roles that we've not done a lot of in the past, because when we have a contractor who will come on campus, they will scan their badge, or they will go through a typical check-in like a volunteer or a visitor would, and then they will do their duties as performed, and typically a staff member follows them around. That's not going to be the case once we start getting into the building projects, because we're going to have a lot more people. So what we'll be doing is we'll be relying on this position to make sure that we have adequate background checks and that those are updated on everyone who sets foot onto our campus. And again, this is just taking the ability, or giving us the ability to do that, again, to make our campuses and our students safe. This position is also going to oversee all of our custodians. So it's another aspect that is currently being done by Valerie Priest, as I mentioned in my email to you guys earlier today. And Valerie's done an outstanding job. However, there's only one Val, and we really need probably three. And so, but she has done an amazing job of trying to balance this with the best that she can. But as I'd also mentioned, with that came a lot of overtime. And so that was a lot of additional costs that we're going to be able to kind of shift some different things around to help cover some of these expenses. So it's not a full-blown salary that we're going to be taking on. A lot of it's already been covered by what Val's been doing for us in the past. So again, it kind of just is working as we're continuing to grow here, as we see more opportunities, as we see things changing. This is just a good time that we were able to be able to create this position to, again, start to realign and start to take some of these job duties and responsibilities and probably put them more where they should be versus just, okay, at one point in time, this person had the ability and the capacity to do it, so you go ahead and do it. Well, that's probably not really the case now. Like Dr. Schaefer said, specifically, Rhonda Reeves, again, does an excellent job with all of our state reporting, but if you ask her, she is busy all the time because the state and reporting and computers, and you can just imagine where that goes from there. So we just, again, it felt like this was a great opportunity, and so I'd be more than happy to elaborate any more or answer any further questions that the board might have. But like I said, we feel like this is a great opportunity to move in this direction and for the next step for our operations department.
Any questions or comments?
I have questions and comments.
Okay.
When did the work for this new position start its development?
I've been talking about this for probably several months at least really trying to get the details of what this job description is going to look like. I knew that probably upwards of a year ago, started just kind of looking at seeing how things were happening and seeing how we were growing. We see our demographic study, we know what's coming, and just starting to see there's different areas where we need to start expanding some of these different roles. So it's been several months that we've been working on this.
My next question is going to be for the three existing board members, and this is nothing against the work you've been doing. It's more about the relationship between the board and being up to date on day-to-day operations within the school district. When was the first time that the three existing board members heard of this new position?
Friday night, or
Well,
when
I
the
mean, I
packet came out, I guess, is when I heard about it.
I saw the posting on Facebook and quickly read through it, but I don't know if we've really talked about it or it's been in a Friday update.
Okay. So I guess my comment is I think it's critical that as we move forward with growth with the community, that as we see the need to add positions and people, the importance of communication, especially with the board, but also to the public, I think it helps inform them when they start to hear about or see positions that they haven't necessarily seen or experienced when they were in school themselves or throughout the time they've been in the community. I think it just does good with good community relations for us to do that. Moving on to another question, though, related to the new position. Has all the work been getting done, or is there work that hasn't been getting done that's now on this job description?
There is work that has not been getting done, yes. So therefore, that is part of the responsibilities that this position is going to start undertaking. Again, some of it is work that has not necessarily had to happen before, like when we're looking at background checks with different contractors and different folks who are going to be on campus that have not been here in the past but are going to be here shortly. There's, again, the key access controls. That's something that's been done at a very high level, but definitely needs a lot more focus. Again, we're talking about the safety of all of our students. When we get to the point if we're unsure of who has a key to be able to open some of our buildings. Again, a lot of that has been managed by different people, different departments, but this is bringing that into one location so that we have one centralized area that we'll be able to track that and have a much better handle on it.
Speaking of safety and security, you have in the goal section It coordinates the safety and security functions across the district. But when I look at the qualifications for the position, it seems that the qualifications seem to be shy of talking about skill set that might lend itself to that. Is there going to be training for the individual?
Yes, definitely. A lot of that is going to be things that are very teachable. We were not specifically looking for, say, a law enforcement officer in this position, which would definitely require a special skill set. This is going to be a lot more of managing a database, managing different programs, being able to provide oversight to those programs. So those are definitely areas that will be very teachable areas, and yes, we will definitely be training this person on all of those areas to make sure they're fully competent, which we fully expect, and that they'll understand how to use the programs as well.
I'm going to jump in here, Jim.
Okay.
This is on security. Was that going to be handled and over? Is Matt going to be looking over how the security is handled by this new position? I would think all security should run through the police department.
Sure.
The police
So
department.
I do want to clarify one thing. I know Mrs. Ward had mentioned this is a operations director. Okay, this is not a director's position. This is a coordinator's position. And so they will directly report to Richard Land through the facilities and handling those custodial aspects and even some of the facilities usages. And they will also both report to not only Richard, but yes, to Chief Oliphant, who will be overseeing all the security. So that, to answer your question, Mr. Bryant, a lot of the training is going to come from Chief Oliphant. Again, this is someone that, heaven forbid, worst case scenario, we have a situation that occurs in one of our buildings. One of the thoughts is that this will be the person who is sitting in front of the cameras or in front of a computer that is on the radio talking to Chief Oliphant, instructing him, okay, here's what the situation is, here's maybe where you need to go, here's what you need to look for, but will not be actually there partaking. And so, yes, again, Mr. Hensel, Chief Oliphant is definitely going to be still in charge of our safety and security. This is just another person to help, and we fully anticipate, hopefully here within the next even year or two, that we continue to provide Chief Oliphant with more tools and resources.
And that's one of the needs we see for the position is we're talking, you're hearing technology, we're hearing the police force, we're hearing facilities and maintenance, and having one person that can sort of cut across that between the departments to get the information that's needed in the right place at the right time.
Is this though, again, because of the interdepartmental cross, is this just a stepping stone to eventually that we're looking for a secretary coordinator of operations within each of our departments as we grow?
That's a great question, and that's some of the work we're engaged in from a strategic planning standpoint now, is beginning to benchmark with other districts that have grown fast ahead of us, to find out what were some of those growth learning experiences, how are they organized. We see this as our need now, but yeah, it can morph into the future. We don't have any clandestine plan to do that, but we know enough to know that we need to learn more about what that is going to look like and how that will evolve across those departments over time.
Okay. And since it does cross departments, and you indicated that this person is going to report to Richard Land, the evaluation of the person makes enough mistakes in the custodial areas, even though they've been doing good jobs in the security stuff. What trumps what in terms of how their evaluation is going to really determine their job performance?
I think at that, again, it will be Chief Oliphant and Mr. Land working together. If, for your example there, they're doing an outstanding job in one department, but just not really getting the job done in the other, I think that comes down to a discussion on, okay, what's the best fit for this person then? Perhaps maybe they are not in the right role, and so we need to look at perhaps another role, or we would typically then handle that through conversations with those two and with the candidate at that time.
And I asked that question in reference to the board goal about retaining quality staff.
Mhm.
I think it's going to be important that we don't have staff that are leaving because they feel tugged between two different people who they're really trying to meet the expectations of evaluation wise.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's like they're just saying that sometimes you don't want too many chiefs, you want more Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And this being the warrior territory.
Sure.
Um,
And I will say that even through the interview process, which this person would have gone through 3 rounds, both Chief Oliphant and Mr. Land were in all those interviews. And so the expectations were laid out in the interview process. So I wouldn't think the candidate would be blindsided by anything coming on.
Okay. Does this position have the authority to dismiss a custodian?
With the consent with Richard, so it would be, they would have the oversight, but then any type of progression of disciplinary actions would also involve Mr. Land as well as being the director of facilities.
They would have the authority to oversee and then make recommendation to the director if there was dismissal or a disciplinary measure needed.
So we have a position that has the name of operations coordinator, but was posted under secretarial clerical. Is there other secretarial clerical positions that are going to be able to have that authority? Again, I'm kind of thinking to the organizational chart that I was reintroduced to on last Tuesday, which I think is somewhat incomplete.
I would agree.
But if you have a coordinator position, which is really a secretary position, but not administrative, again, that's why I asked the question, are there going to be other such secretarial coordinator positions that can have that authority?
So I would say secretarial, no. Coordinator, what we're working on, and this is some things we're going to have to work on over the next year, part of our strategic planning, is that we need to do some realignments with job titles and try to get those all on the same page, specifically being in that coordinator level. The coordinators really should only be a coordinator if they are somewhat overseeing or being able to make recommendations to a director for job responsibilities, for disciplinary actions, for just evaluations and those types of things. So,
And Mr. Bryant, to the point you made, that is a piece we yet need to flesh out on our org chart, and not only in our support staff areas, but in our instructional areas too. We just haven't completed that functioning and fleshing out the actual org chart to see that on paper.
I have some different thoughts on that, but we can do that at a different time. I think that's really all that I have. I think for most of this, my biggest concern out of all of it really comes back to disappointment in reference to when the work began and coming on as a new board member to not have, I'm going to call it the confidence to know that you guys have been communicated with regarding something that I'm being asked to vote on as a new member tonight. And although I had one weekly email before sitting here tonight, communication is probably my biggest concern. If we hadn't already offered the position to a person, I might be thinking differently than I am, but I think it could put egg on our face if we were to take different positions that we could possibly do with this, which then could also hinder our ability to entertain and gather new quality staff if they know that they're not quite sure they're going to be able to get a position once they've been offered it. So, but that's not on them.
And I appreciate your thoughts, and that is something I think we can do a better job of, is communicating that earlier. We typically have probably, I'd say typically probably, we have, in terms of director level up, I think we've pulled those out, communicated earlier on those, and the coordinator is one below that. It's not administrative, but to the point you're making, yes, I think that is something we can do, should do a better job of making sure the board is informed earlier on in the process, and we'll work to achieve that.
I just think it does so good with community relations and relations between the board and the community, between the administration and the board. So that, again, even if it's a simple thing as adding new custodial positions, I think it's important for us to have talked about it publicly in terms of where we are with those things, because it lets our constituents know that we are on top of the fact that we're paying attention to the need to put more people in certain positions. And then we have to come to the consensus of what are the most important positions to start with and move down the list as we grow.
Yeah, and that's a good point, and I think we're going to see not an avalanche of these, but we'll see a higher frequency of new positions as we move through time, as we do experience more growth. You know, for a while, going back not very many years ago, just 4 or 5 years ago, we were declining a little bit in enrollment, and now we're on a pretty clear trajectory upward of enrollment, which creates complexity in your organization as you move forward. And this is one of these complexity pieces of trying to reorganize for better efficiency. So yeah, your thoughts are well taken.
My initial thought was that I would recommend that we postpone this approval till next month. But again, I don't think that's in fairness to the person that you've already offered the job to. And I don't want to cause complications for a quality person that you've identified because of some internal communication conflict.
So do we want to pull this role out, or do we feel comfortable approving the personnel report as presented after this discussion?
I personally, at this time, feel comfortable having had the public discussion. Again, just knowing that going forward, I think we need to have public discussion of new positions well ahead of the offering of a job to a new person, unlike if it's an existing position and you're replacing somebody. Again, I think that, as I mentioned, the importance to the community part. So I'm comfortable leaving it in at this point, but I'm also just one voice out of 5.
Any other comments or questions on this role or the personnel report?
I'm fine with leaving it in. I know Corey, you said several months to a year we've been talking about this position. To reiterate Jim's point, that these new positions that are created that cost more money to the corporation, let's let the board know ahead of time before we hire somebody. I'd like, just don't put the cart in front of the horse anymore.
Definitely.
So, I don't doubt we need this. It sounds like maybe this person's getting a pretty good plate full to start off with. So,
And again, that's part of the responsibility of Dr. Schaefer being in charge of day-to-day function of the school corporation, but it doesn't necessarily dismiss the communication that I think that we could help with when we're asked about it, whether it be at a card game or whether it be at a Friday night football game or some other function that we're at in the community.
Yeah, or even be able to share a post on Facebook of, now we're hiring for this role and be able to answer questions, because we didn't really have any information until the last few days. So thank you for that information and your explanation. Jim, thank you.
I have a quick
Go ahead.
question, I'm sorry. A lot of it seems like at least a portion of the funds for this new role are going to be covered by a person that is stepping into a different role and also an alleviation of overtime. What percentage or what portion of that salary do you think is going to be covered by that person moving into a separate role and also the alleviation of the overtime? Because, it's probably not a huge amount of money being added into the budget once those things are removed. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would say it's 60% at least. I didn't actually have the percentages in front of me. I can get that for you. But I would guesstimate it's about 60% is already covered just in making some of those shifts. So.
And chime in on that. Overall, that's part of the operations goal to transfer out of the education fund that you've been keeping underneath the board goal of what it is, 13.5%. So it's not moving us a whole lot closer to that. And it's just still sustaining that.
Correct. Yep.
And the funds that are moving around in there, I think it actually goes to another part of the personnel report that Valerie is transferring from a secretary position to, again, the title of coordinator of food services. That, in part, is alignment of some of the streamlining you're wanting to do with titles, I take it.
Correct.
And then secondly, irregardless of whether her title is Secretary of Food Services or Coordinator of Food Services, her salary amount is still all part of the operational fund that you're managing to keep under that 13.5%. Is that correct?
Actually, no, that is not.
Okay.
No, that is part of the food service budget. So that's what made this move a little bit easier too, was knowing that all of Val's salary is offset by the food service budget.
Okay.
So those all come out of Mrs. Stumkey's budget.
Okay.
So it does not affect a penny in our operations fund.
So for public answer, food services in general is paid for out of the food services department, which is somewhat related to lunches and the fees that kids pay for lunches and so forth through the year.
Lunches and then, and federal dollars too. Yes.
Federal lunch program.
Yes.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? Thank you. Thank you for this. Who would like to make a motion to approve the personnel report?
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Brown. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Consider approval of the Little Warrior Learning Center tuition for 2023-24 school year.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward, and I apologize, Mr. Brown, about the acronym that I should have at least laid that out for you.
It's a lot of acronyms to learn.
So before you, you just have the recommendation for the increase to our daily rates and for our rates for Little Warrior Learning Center. This is a $1 across the board increase. When you look at that from a percentage breakdown, it's roughly a little bit over 2.5%, depending on what types of service these students are receiving, up to almost a 4.3% increase. To note, when you think about what has been happening in the economy really over the last year or so now, we've seen about a 7 to 8% inflation rate. So this is really just a way to try to start to keep up with that. When we looked at this, we understood we needed to make some increases. And also when we looked at the comparison, which I also attached there in board docs for you to look at, you can see that we are still right in line with most of the other schools here in Hendricks County, along with probably a little bit less than some of the daycares actually here in Danville. So again, this is to help kind of offset some of that inflationary costs that we have to pay out as well towards our employees and towards the different costs that we have. And so this is before you this evening, and I would just ask for the board's approval on this increase.
Motion to approve the Little Warrior Learning Center tuition increase as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Hempsel, second.
Second.
Mrs. Cherry, any questions? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval of second semester 2022-23 non-resident transfer students. Dr. Schaefer.
Yes, and before you are 4 additional names that have transferred in through our approved process during first semester or beginning here second semester. And we'd just like to have these students officially approved by the board, as we did for first semester to beginning of the year. Would ask the board approval of these additional students.
Motion to approve second semester 2022-23 non-resident transfer students.
So moved.
Mr. Hempsel, second.
Second.
Mrs. Cherry, questions? You guys okay?
I have a question. These are the incoming students,
Yes.
but as I remember in years past, there's still difficulty with trying to keep track of how many we're losing transferring out somewhere. Or do we have numbers on that?
The state gives us a number somewhere during first semester. Usually it's kind of a one-time count. It's not an ongoing count through the year. Tracking students is much more challenging than it seems it would be, but it is. And what we went through a process this year working with our building secretaries, technology, building principals. We've had a series of meetings just making sure we're much more accurate on tracking our students in, our transfers in. But once a student leaves here, if they would leave and go to another school in Indiana, we'll typically get a request for transcripts, for that student going. Some students just leave and you don't get anything, or if they go out of state. So there are some real challenges in tracking all students that leave the school district. The other challenge you have is if a student comes in, maybe they live in another part of the county out of the district, and they transfer in, but somewhere during the year they move into your district. They change status. And so we're relying on parents as we go through our open registration or online enrollment registration process starting in March of each year. We're relying on parents to update their records. So that's why we're making that, and have the last couple of years, making that a mandatory process for students to re-register, even returning students, to re-register each year and update their information and their status with us. So that's something we're keeping a much tighter, closer eye on. But specifically to your question, yes, it is still difficult to track students that leave the district for a variety of different reasons.
Any other questions?
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry, these are transfer students, not students that, to your knowledge, they've not moved into our district. Are they
Correct.
going to be moving into our district? Because they are coming from afar.
Yeah, they don't always tell us, but you always have to remember too, let me use this example the other way. We oftentimes may have students who live in Danville whose parents teach in another district. And those students may go with that parent to that other district. Sometimes we have someone who teaches here that may bring students with them across a couple of districts, so they have that daily transportation already covered in the family. These students here specifically, I don't know their exact situation, but all we know right now is when the request is made, they are an out-of-district student who are coming in, providing their own transportation to attend here.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval for participation agreement of the East Central Indiana Natural Gas Cooperative. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. Excuse me, before you is just an agreement that we need to have signed by the board and approved by the board that will allow us to become members of the East Central Indiana Natural Gas Cooperative. As I can see in my notes, what this is this is a just cooperative that we are going to be using and participating in to purchase natural gas. Currently, right now, we purchase that by ourselves, and so the pricing that we're able to get as a one unit is not as good as we could with the cooperative, obviously because they are going to be purchasing a lot more volume, and so they're getting some pricing discounts and breaks that we as just a one school district are not fortunate to be able to receive. So as you can see in here, from an estimated cost that we looked at, running all through last year up until March of this year, we would have saved roughly $24,000, just shy of $24,000, if we had been participating in this over the last year. And so this is just the agreement that would allow us to join that, and then we will start the actual participation of that here in April is when it's going to go out to bid for some of these gas prices coming up, but we'll be able to participate in that moving forward and hopefully be able to save us some money as well.
Motion to approve the participation agreement of the East Central Indiana Central Gas Cooperative as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Brown, second.
Second.
Mr. Hempsel, questions?
Where all do we use natural gas in the school district?
The majority is through our heating is where it's going. Keep
We
it
don't have
nice.
gas stoves, do we?
I don't believe so. I think they're all electric.
And well vented.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval of resolution for DCSC to purchase lift from town of Danville. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. This is, again, as it says, to purchase a lift for $5,000. What we have done in the past is we have actually borrowed this exact lift from the town to be able to do some of the work on our lighting and different things around campus. The town has since purchased a new lift, and so therefore they are selling their current lift. And so this is just the resolution that will allow us to purchase that from the town. Like I said, we have used it in the past. It's been checked out. It's in good shape. And it's a good deal for the type of lift that we're going to be getting and for what we're getting. So just ask for your approval in the resolution to purchase that lift from the town.
Motion to approve the lift from the town of Danville.
So moved.
Mr. Hempsel, second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bryant, questions?
I've got one. How high does it go?
I don't have the specs on it for me. I know that it can get us to all of our lighting in the parking lots.
Parking lots.
Yep.
I know we've done baseball with that one.
Yeah, I think I don't know about football, but it's done every other lighting that we have on campus. So
Then my next question is, why wouldn't we just borrow their new one?
I think they might be a little more stingy about it.
No, they won't.
It
They
is
don't want
brand
to
new.
loan that one out.
No, so maybe another couple of years they might let us borrow it, but
What is the cost of a new one?
a whole lot more than 5,000.
Seems like a pretty good value.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if I saw the quote on the new one or at least heard, but well over 5,000.
We're getting a warranty with it?
All that a $5,000 lift will give you.
As soon as it moves across town, the warranty's gone?
Yep.
This is
I will
one
tell you,
that's super
from
slow.
what the guys have told me, it has one speed and that is low,
Very
and
slow.
so it is not getting across town quickly. So,
You
but
know,
it
between the buildings?
does the job. So
Yeah.
that's what we need.
Yeah, it is very slow.
So if I need to borrow it, we should bring a trailer to haul it home.
Yes, you should. Unless
All
you've got a
right.
couple days.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval of gift donation to DCSC. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. This evening, we have 2 donations before the board for acceptance. We have various members of the community that has donated through the Rally Up program here at the middle school. That money is to go towards the Wampum store. And so for the first quarter, they received $1,757.02. Then there were also some various community members that donated the box tops, and they were able to receive $39.70 in the month of January. And this would go towards purchasing items for the student body as well. So we would ask for the board's approval to accept these donations.
Motion to approve the gift donation. Mrs. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Bryant, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Superintendent's report.
Yeah, and it'll be brief. Just noting that the new board member workshops by ISBA are upcoming, and I know that Mr. Brown, Mr. Bryant, myself have all registered for those. There's an in-person session on January 21st from 10 to 4. That's a Saturday, 10 to 4 at the Service Center, CIESC Service Center office, which is located at the Pyramids on the north side. And we'll be attending that. There are also virtual clinics and follow-up. We haven't yet registered for those, but if you would like to register for those, just let us know. The first one is on public access, and that one's on March 14th or 15th. You have a choice. There's another one on policy making in April, and that's either on the 5th or 11th. Again, choice there. There's one on budget and funding, and that one's in May, either the 17th or 18th. Then there's also what they call a 6-month checkup, which is in June on the 13th or 14th. That's primarily intended for new board members, but really any board member can participate in those that would like to. And again, the ones I mentioned there, those are all virtual ones that you can stream in on those if you'd like to. The first one we'll go to on the 21st is in person, which is good to see those coming back because everything's been virtual the last couple of years. And I think they're always better in person when we're able to attend. So I appreciate the gentlemen taking time to attend those. That's all I have.
Do you want to talk about board retreat?
Oh, yes,
Dates,
thank
sorry.
you. Thank
You're
you. Yeah, I
welcome.
have it right there and didn't see it. Board retreat dates, I would say typically, and we don't always have to do it the same way, but typically what the board has done is found a date on a weekend in February, usually looking at a Saturday, start in the morning, kind of run through very early afternoon, kind of a 8:30 to 12 or 1 or something like that, to do some goal setting, evaluation processes, things like that for the board. So I'm just kind of looking at dates. I listed some dates, possible dates out there for you. The Saturday dates in February, the 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th for consideration. So I just would want to first get a date, and then we can kind of talk about some of the specific things that we would want to do. Certainly some goal setting in that, reviewing back on some things. I know there's some things even in board orientation. We put together binders for the new board members. There's some information I think would be good and helpful for all board members. We weren't able to get through all that, so even just walking through a few of those remaining items I think would be helpful to the board as well. I don't know what dates look good.
I'm available any of those Saturdays.
Me too.
Make this easy.
I'm not available the 25th.
I'm also not available the 25th.
The 4th or the 18th would work best for me, though.
You have Purdue games.
No, I'd check the schedule for that, but no.
My inclination is sooner than better, so February 4th would be the first date. If we could even move it up to January 28th, I'd be open to that.
I can't on the 28th. February 4th would probably be the earliest for me.
I'm not against throughout the week of an evening either. If we're afraid of time, or you work a couple hours, and if we need to go another couple hours, we set that date maybe that night too. If not tying up a Saturday doesn't bother people.
I'd rather talk to Saturday.
Well,
We have.
you're one vote, Beth.
You're not looking at my Monday through Friday. Saturday's easier for me.
Is it possible to maybe start a little bit later in the morning if we did do it on a Saturday? Just because I know I've got children's basketball games. I'm already going to miss this Saturday for the training. So it'd be nice if we could maybe not miss that early, or not start that early, for me, would be my preference.
Sure, I would work around your schedules however you wanna,
Yeah.
however you wanna do it.
Or just come when we get done, Austin too. I mean, it's hard to get everybody all at once, but
I'm also
no-
open to an evening
Evening
idea.
too,
I
yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if that was good for everybody else, but
I'm open to any of it, looking at the 4th or the evening things, or a combination thereof.
or maybe start with the 4th, and if we don't get through everything, we need to add something.
What time would
Later.
you want to start on the 4th, Austin? What would,
our last game ends at 10:30.
so we could start at 10 and you could come late, because usually we eat a little bit of something. What do you guys think? Do we want to do 10 to 1 and see where it goes from there? And then if we needed to do, it doesn't matter to me.
Whatever,
I can do that.
whatever you would prefer, we'll make it work.
I'm good. I can make anything work.
Will you be up then, Jim?
I'm pretty sure. I might be, nap time's usually a little later.
So
That's the drowsy part of the day right there.
let's do 10, let's plan on 10 to 1. If we don't get things covered, then we can look at maybe an evening that following week for maybe, like a 6 to 8 or a 5 to 7, type of thing. I think 3 hours sitting is about as long as
We were gonna
I
run
can
sprints
handle.
this year.
Well, that sounds great. You can.
We don't have to do it here, do we? I mean, or do we?
We can meet where we'd like.
It's central office. It might be easier for.
Yeah. That's
Aaron,
probably closer
nobody
for
comes
you
anyway.
in game. Are you at North Elementary for your games?
One at North and one at South, so.
Except Dave.
Okay, well, we will
We'll do
tentatively
Central. That's
10.
easier for you, right?
Well,
Too?
I'm gonna be out, so it's gonna be, I'll
Okay.
figure out how to get you food.
It'll be easier for me,
I'll
how's
make- I
that?
can
Yeah,
make
let's
it.
do that.
I can make it. Listen, I can make breakfast casseroles or
That's up to
something.
We'll get all that
We'll
covered.
talk about
Okay.
that after this.
Okay.
So I have February 4th, 10 to 1, and then if we
Well,
need extra time, we'll look at an additional evening
At the
sometime after that.
admin office.
At
We'll
the
do it
admin
that,
office.
that
Thank you.
table's
Yes,
more
that's
comfortable
perfect.
than
Thank you.
this. Okay.
And that is a public session or a,
So it depends on what we're doing. I'll have to determine that. There could be some of it that could be an executive portion, and there could be a public, I'm certain there will be a public portion to it. There could be some parts you want to do in an executive session that you can do in an executive session. We need to kind of look at agenda items and then determine that.
But we
So
don't create like an agenda necessarily, right?
Not for necessarily for a work session.
Work,
I mean, sometimes I'll have just kind of a working agenda just to
Yeah.
work through some items, but I could potentially see maybe doing a 1-hour exec and then a couple hours of just public work time.
If you guys have some things you would like to have put on the agenda or discussed, please send them out and let me know. I have a couple of things in mind.
what date would
But,
you like those by?
pardon?
What date would you like those by?
I would say by Friday.
This Friday?
Does that
For
give
the
you
4th
too
of
much?
February?
Does that give, well, I don't know.
It'll just be 2 weeks.
It's gonna go
Probably
pretty
in the
quick.
next, let's say the next week, by next Friday. Is that better, Jim?
Just
By the
trying to
27th.
figure out where to squeeze it into my different projects.
Okay, all right, February 4th, 10 to 1, admin office.
We're gonna revisit our board goals at that, okay.
Yeah, and there are some different things there that will go with that, and some things if you want to, as a board, I know the board's talked about trying to get to that master level, exemplary governance. So that necessitates part of that is completing a self-assessment. So we need to coordinate that a little bit with ISBA, because I believe, and I'll communicate with them, I believe you can take the assessment, we send it in, and at some point then in the future, we'd want to have their consultant meet with the board, kind of walk back through that. We don't have to do all of that on the 4th. We don't have to do any of that on the 4th or to talk about it, but we want to include those kind of pieces that you might want to think through.
Sounds good. Okay, do we have any final announcements? Besides, our next regular meeting will be February the 13th, 6:30, right here in this training room, middle school.
Just a reminder, the Board of Finance will follow immediately after this meeting.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Hensel, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Can we just fire
You
right
guys
into
want-
this one?
Yeah, this one shouldn't take but a few minutes, right?
We're just gonna keep Mr. Herbert talking fast on this one.
He always has, I talk a lot.
Not all this long.
Send him to auction.
That is my promise to you.
It is not, this one is longest. Typically, I get done in an hour. You'll find out, this one is long, there's usually about two or three that are a little bit longer than others.
Do you stay for the Board of Finance meeting?
Turn.
You lucky dog, you.
She need this tonight?
But this was your name. This is what Austin's name on it.
Now, why does that say join the meeting?
Yes. Do we have to join it again?
It's under any motion. Hit that.
Yeah, the conflict of interest forms, I think as you
Then it'll let you
go
What are
through,
those? Yeah.
they're gonna be fairly explanatory, but you're not gonna necessarily answer every question. Some of those will be NA, not applicable.
She need these back tonight?
No,
No, okay.
no.
Thanks, Terry.
We shouldn't have to rejoin the meeting for the Board of Finance, should we?
I went to a different meeting.
You'll just be on a different, you'll just,
I
yeah,
didn't.
click up on meetings and then go to the Board of Finance meeting.
Mine says rejoin.
Mine
for
did,
some
I
reason.
joined
Okay.
again. All right. Okay, I'm gonna call the Board of Finance meeting to order.
There we go.
This meeting is being held pursuant of Indiana Code 5-17 or 5-13-7-6A, which requires an annual Board of Finance meeting after the first Monday and on or before that, the last day of January. Okay, consider election of officers for Board of Finance.
Typically, the board has just chosen the same slate of officers as you have for the regular board because the boards are exactly the same boards. So that's my recommendation to the board.
So we have the option of keeping the structure the same. Any objections there?
Not at all.
I move that we keep the,
Motion to approve, Mrs. Cherry.
I move that we keep the board the same.
Second.
Second, Mr. Himsel. Do we need to write this down?
I got it.
Oh, you got it.
I
Okay,
got
I was
it.
like, Aaron,
I
go away. Sorry. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Receive report on financial condition using fiscal and qualitative indicators. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. So I will try to talk fast through this. This is our 2023 fiscal indicators presentation. I will also tell you that these numbers are from 2021 because the state does not update them that quickly. So this presentation that you heard last year would have been from the previous year. So this is what we've got. Like what Mrs. Ward just said, Indiana Code 513-7-8 says that we have to have this meeting where we talk about the financial condition of the district. A couple of different things here that I just want to walk through, just some brief things, student demographics. So we have a chart here that shows our free and reduced lunch and kind of how that has been trending over the last several years. Same thing with special education and our ELL. So these are just kind of snapshots to give you just a general history of what our demographics have looked like. You can see there specifically special ed, that's continuing to go up. We've talked about that, but I just want to bring that to your attention. As we look at our certified net assessed value, this is one that we've had a lot of talk about. We can see that that continues to climb dramatically there in 2023, where we were able to push over the $1 billion mark. So we continue to see that increase and grow. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. Next, we're going to talk about our average daily membership. Again, this is broken down to the counts that we take both in the spring and the fall. And then I've also put just kind of a trend line on there so you can continue to see that we are moving upwards. If you go to, and I'll jump back real quick, but if you go to the DUAB website, that is where you're able to find all of these graphs and all of these different numbers. That's where they come from. The red I added in there because obviously I know what we've already counted for this past year, so just kind of chart that so we can see what it looks like moving forward as well. But you can see we've had our biggest ADM count here in the fall of '23, where we hit 2585, and we continue to expect that to increase as well. As we look at our total fund balance, again, this being able to add in 22, you can see that we have continued to grow our fund balance over the past, we're going on, 7 years now. Seen a steady increase in that, so that's a good number that we need to continue to watch, but it's showing that we have sufficient cash on hand. The annual deficit and surplus, so this would be your expenses versus your revenues, and if you're running in the black or in the red, as you can see, we have continually ran minus 2015 in the black, which is what we will continue to do and will always target doing. You can see here in 21, continue to see that go up. When we talk about fund balance as a percentage of operation expenses, this goes back to some of the conversations that we had in our regular board meeting here we had just a couple minutes ago, where you can see that actually in 22 we had a little bit of a decrease in this. And that was because we did go and we did spend some of our cash down on purpose. That was a strategic plan that we knew we were doing and we anticipated and presented that to the board and was in agreement. And so that's why you're seeing that number come down just a little bit. Also knowing that we're still well over 35%, so we're still in good shape with that. I tried to go back and do a little bit of research to see if I could find any other districts here in the county for this current year. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any of their numbers, but because I know last year we had the highest percent when it came to this. And this is just basically your cash on hand versus your expenses. So for the county last year, we were the highest district. And hopefully knowing that it went down a little bit, I don't know if we'll still be there, but as soon as we get those numbers, we'll take a look at that and see. This is just a breakdown of the revenue by different types. So you can see that a majority of our revenue there comes from state revenue or comes from our ADM counts or the dollars per student. Then with the next category being the local tax revenue, which is in the red there. We have a little bit that comes from our debt revenue. The new category for this year is that purple, so the federal stimulus revenue. Actually, I think it looks like there might have been a little bit of that in 2020. Again, that's coming from all the COVID dollars and all of our ESSER dollars that we've received. And so we were able to get a little bit of those dollars, obviously not as much as others, but we appreciate what we did receive. And then the final one on here is just operating referendum revenue. We all know we do not have any referendum, and so therefore that will be at zero and will continue to remain at zero, as we do not have any revenue that is provided through a referendum. So that is the end or the conclusion of the DUAB indicators, and so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
What's DUAB stand for?
The Distressed Unit Appeals Board.
Another acronym.
That is essentially the organization that when schools start to experience financial hardships will step in and either help or in some cases have even taken over the operations of the district who are for some reason or not unable to manage their own finances. So
The state's put together its required list of these indicators so that the state can then assess for each unit whether they are healthy or not. So now this is a required part of the reporting to all local boards as part of your board of finance.
A quick question in your chart under special education. Why is it tracking so strong that the percentage jumped from just over 10% to now nearly 18% in a 10-year period? Did they change the reporting or?
I'm gonna let Dr. Schaefer take that one.
Or you let Morgan take that one. But you're seeing two things there, I think. One is you're seeing a greater awareness across the state, across the nation of special education needs and a better ability to identify those needs earlier on. Because we're seeing this trending really across the state where you're seeing a higher and higher percentage of special education identified students with disabilities. And the other thing that we've done here this last year, we've hired an additional school psych so that we have the ability to work through the kids that need testing and identification. So that process builds. And the other thing is, quite honestly, Danville schools, we have a good reputation for special education programming. And we'll have families come as a result of that, either moving in or transferring in, probably more move-ins than transfers. But it's a combination of those things. But as I look across, and I've looked at the other schools in the county here at least, and some of the schools have a lower rate, but we're seeing them all grow. And I think that it's just a trend that we're going to see continue into the future. And I know the returning board members, we've talked about this probably at some length here just in the last 2 or 3 months. That's putting a lot of additional burden on our special education department. As we talked about growth in positions, that's one of those areas we sort of have to grow out over time because of those increased needs.
And the need for instructional assistants, that's usually our biggest need
That's right.
for the special ed instructional assistant positions. Okay, any questions? We don't have to approve anything, right? We just
Nope,
keep
that is
rolling.
just, yep, informational
Okay,
purposes.
2.2.
So the next item up is the investment report. So let me switch.
2.3, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Cool. Switch over here to our investment side. Again, per policy, this is something that we have to talk about here in this meeting. There we go. So just a couple highlights from last year. Again, we've talked about this already, but we did see our total overall cash balance decrease just slightly, just a little bit over $100,000 there, going from 17.67 million down to 17.55 million in 2022. The interest that we earned in 2022 was up 2,943%. So that actually was the largest increase and largest amount of interest that we have earned really in the last probably at least 10 years. I could go back and look and see. So we did earn $173,000, almost $174,000 in interest this past year. For you board members who weren't here last year, that was comparable, and you'll see this here on the next slide, to about $5,000 last year. So it was quite a significant increase.
What accounts for the difference?
I would take all the credit myself, but that's probably not it.
Well,
The
I'd say
increase,
a lot of it is due there.
it is a different strategy, but a lot of it is also due just to the increased interest rates that you've seen the federal government push up. And when I get to my next chart here, I've got a comparison between the Fed funds rate, so you can kind of see how that's tracked over time versus the interest that we've earned. But it is a different strategy that I've taken as far as really capitalizing on the Hoosier Fund.
Is there any correlation to what private investors can do? Because that would be a great return rate.
That would be a great return, and I would be very rich probably.
Well,
but I
that's
don't-
where we have capitalized off of Corey's background in banking and finance has been very helpful.
So we capitalized on the increase in the interest rates, obviously by investing in the Hoosier Fund account to maximize our interest earned. Again, that was instead of looking at CDs, because CDs were continuing to be low for a long period of time. They're starting to creep back up now, but the Hoosier Fund was consistently running ahead of what CDs had ran at. And as we talked in the past, the Hoosier Fund is totally liquid. That's cash that I can have really same day if I needed it. So we've been able to move a lot of our just cash instead of sitting in a bank account into the Hoosier Fund, and it's gaining a lot more interest. And so that was one way that we were able to capitalize on that. Again, we provided the second year of historic pay increase to our teachers and support staff. It was done through our negotiations really 2 years ago, but we're still able to continue that. We saw the interest rates rebound from the previous year's lows to an increased interest earned to the highest amount in at least the last 9 years. And we were able to establish the TREX program and was able to use that to successfully collect over $20,000 in bad debt in 2022. For those who are not familiar with the TREX program, that is a program where instead of using a collection agency where we take our bad debts and turn over to the collection agency, the TREX program will actually go, and if the individual files an Indiana state return, then they will take the money from the Indiana state return in order to be able to recover some of the debt or some of the expenses that are owed to, and it's not for just schools, it's for all municipalities. So we've been able to take advantage of that and seen pretty good success with that over the last year.
Was that the first year we'd used that program?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we started that actually about this time last year.
Do you have an outlook of temperature on any of these things related to if a recession does come into place in 2023?
Everything that we're hearing is that, what I've been hearing is that we're not expecting a recession, we're still expecting a slowdown. I think that depends on how you define a recession. Some people might say we're already in a recession. Others will say, if you look at the unemployment numbers, we continue to see unemployment rates go down, so that does not constitute a recession. I think it's going to continue to see what inflation does as inflation starts to come down. We've seen that here recently where it's starting to come down a little bit more, that hopefully the Fed will back off kind of the aggressiveness, which is good and bad. It's from this standpoint, that's bad because we won't see the rates continue to go up, but from what we're getting ready to jump into with our financing and our projects is good. And so we're looking to see kind of how that happens. But yeah, we anticipate still going to be somewhat of a flat year, maybe a little bit up, just on the interest rates, depending on what really and I just lost the word there. You know what I'm trying to say.
So Dr. Schaefer, just in reference to the interest rate there, would you say that Corey is achieved number one in the county?
Chief number one in the county? I'd say he's done well for us.
He paid his way.
You're paying for yourself, Corey. We appreciate
There you
it.
go.
Thank you.
Whoever was on the hiring committee that recommended him, right, Corey?
They did a fantastic
They did
job.
a fantastic job.
This is just, again, looking at the balances in our accounts. So obviously, we have Huntington as our primary checking account. We also have several other accounts with food service. The money market account, again, it was just not paying enough interest to justify leaving those dollars there, so that was moved out. And then we have our textbook and payroll. Trust Indiana, that's actually where the dollars go that we collect from Trex. They actually go into the Trust Indiana account. That's just part of the way that program works. So you can see the interest rate on that is actually pretty decent. And then the Hoosier Fund, obviously, and that's old dollars that has actually gone up to 4.3% now. So it follows pretty closely to when you see a Fed hike, you're going to see the Hoosier Fund's rate go up. So again, 4.3% on liquid money that I can get within the same day. That's where you've seen a big justification or a big really boost on our interest, and that's where that's come from. You can kind of see there when you look at balances from beginning of the year to the end of the year, kind of the strategy that I've taken, and moving a lot of the primary dollars, again, that were just sitting at Huntington, that are earning, today 0.3%, and move that down into the Hoosier Fund where we're earning 4%. So able to take on a lot more interest rate that we can take advantage of there.
Refresh my memory, but when we had the forgery, when the check problem, was that Huntington?
Yep.
Now, there was talk then, did they make that right with us?
They were able to, we did not recover all of the funds. I believe the original amount was like $89,000. We recovered all but just under $2,500. So they were able to make whole a good portion of it.
Yeah, the check was actually cashed on Chase somewhere else. But
Mhm.
yeah, we were banking through Huntington.
Through Huntington. I just remember that in the beginning, maybe they weren't as wanting to play ball like maybe we thought they should with the amount of money we're keeping there.
They did make good on
Mhm.
Okay.
almost
Yep.
all of it.
I figured they did since we're still there.
Yep.
The district just ate the rest of it?
Yep, unfortunately.
No FDIC, no
Not for fraud.
insurance aspect of anything, man? Just
No, unfortunately, that's not for this type of a situation. So here's the chart that I had referenced before. Here, the green line is a representation of what you see the Fed funds rate and what it's been doing since 2014. You've seen it range anywhere from almost nothing the last 2 years at the 0.09 and 0.08 to a boost of 4.33. That would be at year end for this year. And then you can also see the red line is a representation of the interest that we have earned in those time periods. So 2019, we had a good year of $167,000. But like again, I said, last year we were just under $6,000, then recovered to $173,000, $174,000 for this year. So I'd like to take some of that credit, but some of it is the interest rates. But you can give me the credit, that's fine. So as we look into 23, we're going to continue to look at investment strategies to maximize rate and liquidity. We continue to use the Hoosier Fund to maximize that interest earned. We're going to continue to use the Trex program for our fee collection, and we will continue to monitor CD rates for future investments as if we start to see some of these rates go down, if the Fed starts to take another approach to pulling out of a recession, if we get to that point, they will start cutting rates. At that point, we'll really look at CDs to try to lock those rates in to prolong that rate reduction that we would feel. So that's your investment report for this year. So I'd be happy to answer any further questions that you might have.
Keeping us legal.
Okay, motion to approve interest on investments. Oh, no, sorry, we're not on that one yet, sorry. I was one behind, now I'm one ahead. Sorry, next one, 2.4, consider approval of interest on investments
Same thing,
resolution. Sorry.
Yep, so this is just a resolution that we will pass. This just states that we are going to put or deposit all the interest that we earn into our operations account. This is just a resolution that we pass once a year. We do have the ability to change that. We can put it into the education fund if we wanted to. We're going to continue to put that into the operations fund for this year. So I would ask for your approval on that resolution.
Motion to approve the interest on investments resolution.
So moved.
Mr. Hensel, second.
So moved.
Mr. Bryant, all in favor?
I have a
Or question, sorry.
Is there any reason we couldn't put the money towards our debts?
Yes.
Okay.
You, as per statute, we're not allowed to put it into the debt service fund. So that's only raised through property taxes and through the local taxes. So this has to go either towards the education or the operations fund.
And I assume that by putting it in the operations fund, that's part of the strategy to keep the transfer from the education fund down.
Correct.
Yep.
This tends to be your neediest fund, if I can say it that way, so anytime you have extra revenue, you can plug in there, it just helps keep it stable.
So we're still keeping money in there.
Any other questions?
Take as little as you need to out of that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval of distribution of local income tax.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. This, again, is another resolution just stating that we will be depositing the local income tax. Again, this is another one of those taxes that we have the option of where we put it. And so this resolution is just to say we will continue to put that into the operations fund. That's the way we've done since 2019. And so this is just to carry that forward. So I would ask for your approval on that resolution as well.
Motion to approve distribution of local income tax funds.
So moved.
Mrs. Cherry, second.
Second.
Mr. Hensel, questions?
Do we have the option down the road to redirect that if we chose to, like we did the previous one?
Yes. Yeah, that's another one that we will do this resolution every year. So, yeah.
Any other
So
questions?
we're locked into that, putting it in that fund for the rest of this calendar year.
I would think with
You
a
could probably-
resolution,
you
we
probably
could change it.
if you really needed to. I think you could.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval of financial institutions. Mr. Herbert.
Thank you. This is just the financial institutions that we have currently banked with or have banked with here in the recent past, and a lot of these are just local banks as well. So obviously, we have Huntington Bank, we've used PNC a little bit, we have North Salem and State Bank of Liston, which I think is just State Bank now, and then also the Hoosier Fund. So these are just the same institutions, except for the Hoosier Fund. We're adding that in to this year's list, but this would just be for your approval so that we continue relationships with those financial institutions.
And those have no particular ranking, just a list.
Yep, just a list. Yep.
Motion to approve financial institutions.
So moved.
Mr. Bryant, second.
Second.
Mr. Hensel, questions?
State Bank is not on your list. Does it
Oh,
need
did I
to
read
be?
the wrong one?
State
North
Bank.
It's the
Salem.
North Salem State Bank.
State Bank.
Or no, sorry, the,
Oh, I
It
have
doesn't list
Hendricks County and North Salem.
Okay,
Sorry. Yes.
this list is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Consider approval of the resolution authorizing the investment of public funds and the ordinance of authorizing the investment of public funds.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
So these two, again, these are items that we will typically approve every year. We might not use them, we might use them. The first one is the maturity ordinance. Statute says that we are only allowed to do, and this would be if we're referencing a CD perhaps, that's going to be your biggest example of this. Statute says that we are only allowed to take on CDs that have a maturity of 2 years or less. So what this ordinance says is that we are allowed to take that from 2 years to 5 years if the need were to arise. And really this is going to be, I would foresee if we see a dramatic decrease in interest rates and we feel that we have a little bit of cash that we could probably lock up for a longer period of time. If we see rates falling as quickly as they've risen, That might be an opportunity that we would look at perhaps at something longer than a 2-year CD to be able to lock in rates kind of as they sit today, knowing that they're going to be dropping rather quickly. So that's what this is for. We've not used this in the past. It's just kind of a resolution that we pass or an ordinance that we pass just to kind of be safe that if the opportunity presents itself that we're able to capitalize on that. The other resolution that talks about the investment of CDs, this is a resolution that will allow us to invest in banks outside of our local district. That would be other state-approved banks. So if you think about here in the Hendricks County, or really it's specific to just our Danville district here, if there's a bank that is not here, prime example would be Citizens Bank. There's a First Bank that's out of Carmel that in the past has had decent interest rates that we've used as far as from a CD standpoint or that I've used in the past. This allows us to be able to use those institutions as well. Per the statute, we're really only supposed to bank with banks that are in our district. So that kind of does limit us, and especially when we're looking at CD rates, there's a lot of other banks that will give us a better interest rate and better return on our money. So this just allows us to be able to engage with those banks as well. So again, we might use them, we might not. This is just passing these ordinance in this resolution just in case we get into that situation.
Okay, motion to approve the resolutions authorizing investment of public funds and ordinance authorizing the investment of public funds as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Mrs. Cherry, questions?
Is it your intention, if possible, to continue to bank with our local banks?
Yes, yeah, that would always be my intent, obviously, and we would have to look at the rates. I mean, there's a lot to be said to keeping our money local. We have several banks here in the area that support the school systems, and so obviously we would want to do the same in return. So, yeah, obviously that's always going to be our first priority, but also if the rates aren't even comparable, then we would take that under advisement as well.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion pass.
Before you go to adjournment,
Mhm.
question, either I missed it or maybe it's still upcoming, but at the orientation core, you referenced that there was going to be a request to do an appropriation for $500,000 from the rainy day fund for an emergency. Did I miss that tonight, or is that still upcoming?
No, that already happened.
Oh, it's already
Yeah,
been done.
that goes
Okay.
through in October when we do our normal budgeting
Okay.
process.
So we don't have to worry about that again until?
Nope, not until next October.
You were just letting them know we did that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Mr. Bryant. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Those opposed can stay longer.
Yeah.
Before we jump into whatever signing we need to do, could we have our group picture so Abby could get out of here?